All right, guys, I come in peace. So today we're going to be talking about Game of Wool, a competition show that has taken the fiber arts community by storm. But I want to get a few things out of the way before we start covering them. So I'm a crocheter. I have a very, very amateur level of knitting, and the most knitting I've ever done is from those Five Below knitting kits, and I'll tag them underneath. That's as far as I've really gone into knitting, so I'm not familiar with terminology on special techniques. So I don't know, and I really don't want to speak on them because I don't know. However, there are a ton of videos out there with actual knitters that understand the differences and when to use some of the terms, how a specific technique that was used on the show is appropriate or when it's not appropriate. So all that technical stuff, I don't know, and I'm not going to cover it, but I will mention if there are some things that, are worth mentioning. All right, so the premise of the show is 10 knitters compete during 8 weeks, and every single week they'll have 2 challenges to complete. And at the end of the week, whoever doesn't do a good job gets casted off, and that is basically eliminated. That's what they're going to call it here. We have 2 judges who are the creme of the creme when it comes to knitting. One of the ladies is Dee, and then the other one is Sheila. And they are, what I say, the creme of the creme, because that's how the show portrays them, and I really do think they are. These ladies have worked with Chanel, with other companies, and they are, they've been in the fashion industry, of course, and they have also worked with King Charles himself. So these ladies know what they're doing. They're master knitters. And we have Tom Daly, who is the host. So for this first week, our first challenge is they have to create a tank top or like a vest in 12 hours. But there's a catch. They have to use Fair Isle to tell their story, and that's like their life story. And what they do mention on the show is that they had a design beforehand, and this is something that I heard from Gordon, who is one of the contestants, and he says on his YouTube channel, and I'll link it down below as well. He does mention that they did have a trial run before getting to the show. He did have like a tester there so that he actually knew the technique that he was going to use. And this is important because he ended up using a technique called steeking. And it's essentially a special knitting technique where you are allowed to cut the fabric and it will not unravel. So he had already tested that before the show. And I didn't know that when I was watching the show. I recently found this out. But it's very interesting that for this challenge, at least, they did come somewhat prepared. This is where the controversy starts. There was some technicalities and some meanings that were not used appropriately in the show. And as a crocheter, I didn't pick up on them while I was watching them. But while I was watching the show, I was able to understand what they were going for, like how they were going to construct the vest. Because one thing that I think Game of Wool does really good is that they have very nice animations where they describe how every contestant is starting from the hem. They're supposed to work their way up using circular needles, and then once they get to this part over here, they're supposed to kind of switch out to flat needles and work in panels. It was very easy to understand for someone that has absolutely no knowledge of knitting. So I think that is who this show is. I think that's who this show is for not necessarily for knitters and crocheters. It's meant for people that are just into reality TV or into competition shows. And this is just something different, right? Because how many shows can we really do where people go and do challenges and they sweat and they fall and they bump or bounce around, right? So this is a different way to do a competition, right? So I personally, when I look at a reality TV show like this or a competition show like this, I expect there to be a lot of how would I even say this? Not lies, but a lot of things that are misrepresented. Now, the thing here is that they have two judges who are supposed to be or who are master knitters. And you would think that one way or another, they would correct the producers or they would correct some of the terminology that is being used wrong. So I don't know. That kind of leaves a weird taste in my mouth. For me, that's the first red flag. And that's not going to be the only red flag. At least for these two challenges or for this week, they used chunky yarn. And I understand why, don't get me wrong. This is supposed to be worked over 12 hours. So yes, you're not going to finish a vest in 12 hours using fine yarn. It's absolutely impossible unless you do some serious damage to your hands. And of course, that is another one of my concerns, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's just move on with the show. We meet Holger first, and I don't know, I thought he was kind of funny. I like him. He's a no-nonsense kind of dude. And he, right off the bat, goes to say, I do not like chunky yarn. And there's like a part where he says, you know, chunky yarn for me is like asking a vegetarian to express themselves using meat. So I understand his frustration because it's like if you're not used to a specific, if you're not used to working or you just don't like working with chunky yarn and then you have to work on with chunky yarn, I understand his frustration. It can be a little off-putting to want to finish the project, but nonetheless, he toughs it through. I guess he's just starting to bring out some of the challenges that the knitters are going to be facing throughout the show. Now, then we meet Isaac, and he seems like a sweet young man. I think out of everyone's vest, I really liked his, and I think he's very creative. I think he's someone that has a lot of potential for this competition, but I really like them. He is someone to look out for in this competition for sure. And then we meet Gordon. He is a cruise ship singer, entertainer, and he's the one that's trying to knit that steeking technique where you're able to cut into your knit fabric and it won't unravel. So what he's trying to do is he doesn't want to have to switch over when it comes to the armholes and the neck hole. He just wants to be able to knit all the way around and then just go with the scissors and cut, which I thought that was pretty genius given the time constraints. And if he had already practiced this beforehand, which we don't know that in the show, like I said, we find that out through his YouTube video. So that's pretty cool that he was willing to, I don't know, go above and beyond to stand out. And I think that should have been points in his favor. But as we later find out, it was not. And I don't know. At first, when I was watching the show, I'm like, he's nuts. How is he going to try this? Like now, when there's like time constraints, when you're under pressure to, because you're in a competition, like he's not. He was very confident in himself. And I thought that was points in his favor. And then we meet Tracy. And she's a longtime knitter. And when she's sitting there, one of the judges, they're giving her a side eye while she's working. So at this point, I'm questioning what the judges are really going to be looking for because they don't really give any guidelines as to what they're going to be judging for this specific challenge or for any of the challenges, to be fair. There is no chart, there's no rubric to where we know what the judges are looking for, to where the knitters know what the judges are looking for. So I don't know, like, are they judging the technique? Because you really can't judge someone sitting there and crocheting or knitting in saying that's not the way I do it, you're wrong, and then disqualify them simply because that's not the way that you do it. That's not right. I mean, at the end of the day, a vest is a vest. It doesn't matter how we got there. We produced a vest, right? So that's, I guess, my second red flag, because there is no consistency with these judges, either of them. And I think that is going to come into play during the show because I do not agree with the person that got casted off was fair. And I will explain to you why. We then meet Dipti, and she's an amateur knitter, and she's just there for the first time trying to knit in Fair Isle. And kudos to her. Her design was really pretty. And knowing now that they did have some practice time, I guess it was cool, and she did do kind of a good job. The design was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. A lot of these designs were really pretty. And these people are, they have a lot of imagination. And I really like that. But she does get to address the elephant in the room because she does say that she does not like to finish projects. And y'all, I don't know. Dipti is all of us. I'm Dipti. So I feel that way too. Y'all know, with my multiple whips, which hello, this is a whip that I managed to finish. Yoo-hoo! Y'all, I understand her frustration, and this is going to be yet another challenge that these knitters are going to be facing, which of course, I mean, it's cool that all of these variables are coming into play when it comes to the competition. We also meet Stephanie, and she's such a giddy lady. I really liked her vibe, honestly. We then meet Meadow, and she's the youngest one of all of them. We then have Simon, who is an ex-Marine, and y'all, he brings the comic relief with some of the most tension-filled moments in the show. I like them. And then we have Lydia, who, I mean, she's just not sweating it. She's just there knitting. And this is something I found out through the grapevine, not in the show. She is actually a yarn store owner. And then we have Elsa. And she actually manages to surprise the judges. She was so soft-spoken, and I could honestly listen to her just read me a book because I really liked her. The more the time passes, the more everyone starts to really stress out and they start to feel the crunch. So Simon tries to lighten up the mood, and Holger is just not having it. So we get to see some of the personalities kind of surface already. And y'all, oh my God. With 1 hour remaining, Tom, the host, he has the audacity to try to talk to them, and Holger just shuts him down. He's like, not right now. But Dipti, y'all, she straight up told him, I don't have the time. Sorry. Y'all, like I said, Dipti is all of us. First with the, I don't know if I want to finish to this garment, and then with the, don't talk to me, I am busy. Y'all, I don't know. I really liked all the contestants, and that's, I think, why I feel like this show really got me hooked, because for the first time in a very, very long time, I watch a competition show, and I really like everyone. I'm rooting for everyone. So then Gordon starts cutting, and boy, oh boy. We then cut to the judging part, and the judges were talking about the colors, the color choices, how even the stitches were, the design, and then they go on to say, well, we really want to know if you answered the question. Does your Fair Isle vest answer the what is your story question? And this is where I was a little confused. So Simon didn't finish his vest, but he got good feedback on the story. And then Gordon, he doesn't finish, but because he had done the steeking, I feel like overall the judges were just harsher on him and on his design. And I think his design was fine. And I don't know, I feel like the judges really honed in a lot on him using steeking. And they're like, oh, well, it's a shame that you didn't get to finish because you did steeking. And for me, I was like, okay, so what if he used that technique? He gave you a vest with the story. Yes, it's unfinished, but he's not the only one whose vest is unfinished. Anyways, so I felt like the judging of his vest was a little too harsh. Now, Elsa, she made Sheila cry. And now I'm just sitting here like, it's just like a little scarf that she added as a collar. Why are you crying? I don't know. It felt too forced, but y'all, we're watching reality TV. But why was she crying? It's beyond me. That's not to take away from Elsa's design. I personally thought her design was one of the prettiest ones, in my personal opinion, because you have to think about this. Even though a lot of these designs I would personally not wear because they're not my taste or because the colors are not my go-to colors, doesn't mean that these designs are not pretty. I think her design was not only pretty, her vest was complete, and then she added a little pizzazz. Then we go to Isaac, and his was unfinished as well, but he was praised for his double stitching technique. What the show describes is basically going over the knitted fabric with yarn and adding stitches or adding details. And then he used the tails from that double stitching to hide some of the ends that were woven in the back. So I thought it was pretty cool. And then we get Dipti, and she just goes on to say that she was rushed, that she's a slow knitter, and the neck hole is too small. Tom, who by the way is the one modeling all of these vests, can't put it on. It just does not fit over Tom's head. So he takes it off and he just puts it like here, and then the judges are judging by that. For me personally, and this is nothing wrong with Dipti, this challenge, I think she should have been the one to lose this challenge, because the whole point was to create a finished garment that told your story. And yes, she told the story, but it was not a finished garment. It is not something that could be worn. So for me, I think Dipti should have lost this specific challenge, but she doesn't get judged too harsh for that. And I thought that that was unfair. And then this is where, like I said, I think the judges are judging on their whim and how they feel about these specific knitters or the people. And I don't know, I don't like that. But let's move on. After everyone presents their pieces, Gordon gets interviewed. His words really made me feel bad for him. He says that's pressure, and he's talking about how his entertainer job. He goes on to say, but this really got to me. I've disappointed myself. I cracked under the pressure of knitting that no one is paying me to do. Biggest red flag ever. Oh my God. So at this point, I'm thinking, what was the price again? They haven't mentioned the price. The work that they're doing here has to surely offset the time and effort that you're putting here. And not only the time and effort that you're putting here, the wear and tear you're putting on your hands. So I'm thinking, we haven't heard the price. That's interesting. But my friends, this is 30 minutes into the episode, and we've yet to hear about the price. Now, keep in mind, this is a competition to find the ultimate knitter. Britain's ultimate creme of the creme, the knitter, the bee's knees. This is what the show is supposed to be. So you're thinking, okay, what are they going to do? Are they going to partner up with a yarn company to launch a yarn line? Are they going to, I don't know, I don't know, what can you do? Are these people, and keep in mind, none of these people are presented as business people. None of these people are presented as having a YouTube channel, as being influencers, as having a yarn store. So really and truly, these people are not benefiting from being in this competition. So I recently found out that Lydia, she actually has a yarn store, but that is not portrayed on the show, which honestly kind of sucks, because it's the least they could do. Because guess what? I had to research this, and you know what the grand prize is? Recognition. Yeah, you heard that right. They're like, let me pay you an experience. Can you believe that? And I was honestly shocked when I found that out, because I had to really stop the show, and I'm like, that's true. I haven't seen what this is about. Like, why are they even doing this? And yeah, lo and behold, It's experience. They're paying them with recognition, exposure points, whatever you want to call them. That is pretty shitty, because for the second challenge, we find out that they have 10 hours to complete a sofa cover. And mind you, they're doing it as a team, which I guess it's fine, but it's still 10 hours that they have to sit down and knit or work with yarn. Keep this in mind. This is the second challenge, and they have not changed their clothes. Now, I understand it's reality TV, and chances are that there was some time in between these challenges, because I find it very hard to think that they would be knitting for 22 hours straight. I just don't think that's the case. I think that maybe there was one day where they sat down and filmed the vest challenge, and then the next day they sat down and filmed the sofa cover challenge, which, if that's the case, that's mortifying. Think about all the wear and tear for your hands. That really is another red flag. How much time is passing between the challenges? That's what I want to know. Because keep in mind, they have 1 week to finish this. So I don't think they're necessarily giving them a lot of time to kind of bounce back from the previous project. For the second challenge, like I said, they're working in teams, and the judges want them to create a sofa cover that is cohesive, practical, and guess what? Uses chunky yarn. Yes, that wretched chunky yarn that not a lot of people here like working with. And not only chunky yarn, you have to keep in mind that these people are working with, at least they mention it for this challenge, they're working with 25mm needles. So these people are like managing like the big long stakes, the rods, and just going like that. And that amount of movement can really, really mess up your shoulder. The judges want to be wowed. They want to be amazed. They want these people to plan, design, and of course, agree. And look, I'm going to divide the teams into Holger's team and Isaac's team. That's not the way the show does it, but that's the way I'm doing it, because that's who took the helm to plan for each of their teams. So Holger's team, he comes up with the plan to do an ombre effect and have everyone knit panels, and then at the end they're all going to stitch them together. And then Isaac, I think this is where he is very creative. He loves color, and I really think he could very well get to the final stages of the competition because he's very creative. He plans out to do kind of like a sunset theme, and it's good. He took on the sunset and he tries to do it with the intarsia technique. And boy, oh boy, it does not go well. So everyone gets assigned a panel and they start knitting. You and I know that when it comes to crocheting and knitting, everyone has a different tension. Even if everyone uses the same yarn, the same needles, everyone is going to have a different tension. So I'm wondering, have these knitters accounted for that? Have they done a test swatch? Are they, is it something that they carry around in their craft bag? And then they're like, look, this is my swatch. Let's compare so that everyone has the same gauge at the end of the day, and that no piece is too small when it comes to working in teams. And honestly, I think that would be the most basic thing to have your contestants do. But then again, as we find out that maybe these producers and the people running the show have absolutely zero idea on knitting. You guys, I found this so heartwarming. And Holger's team finished first, and with 10 minutes in the clock, they're like, oh man, should we go help? And they're like, yeah, let's go. And they went on to help Isaac's team, and they're there trying to help them stitch all the pieces together on the sofa. And honestly, that warmed my heart. And I don't know, it made me be proud of being a part of this fiber arts community, because even if there are some people that don't agree with your take on knitting or crochet and they're very vocal, for every one of those, I think there's a lot more people that are willing to help and that are willing to really share the love of the craft. I think that was a pretty sweet thing to see, at least in a competition show. I mean, come on, how often do you see that, right? So then we get to the final judging stage. And the judges walk in looking at the couches. You can immediately tell that they're just not wowed. They're not amazed. And they're like, ew. And of course they start off with the unfinished couch and they're like, well, it doesn't have cohesion, seems like a good idea, but of course it didn't make the cut. Then they go to the gradient sofa and they say that it's very simple, it didn't have a wow factor, and they go on to say, we were looking for amazing. And I'm sitting here, ma'am, this is 10 hours. What the hell you been talking about? You're lucky you got these 10 extra hours out of these knitters, because I'm pretty sure their hands are hurting. And they just really, because of the execution and the design, they ultimately gave them the win, the completed couch. But it wasn't because they were wowed. And I don't know, this is why I'm like, okay, so what are we judging? Because technically, yeah, the ombre effect seems like the way to go. It seems like, I wouldn't say the lazy approach, but the most practical approach to complete this project in 10 hours. And I thought that was, the smart thing to do. Practical. If you were looking for design, yeah, I think the sunset couch was probably the most creative. The execution, yeah, it was wrong. I think that for the sun and the sky part, they should have gone with the ombre effect. They should have done, I think Isaac overcomplicated himself with the color changes and the Antarsha method. I think he just did way, way, way too much. So then we have this week's knitter, and it's Elsa. And guess what she got? She got to wear a sheep pin, which of course I guess it gives her bragging rights, but that's it. It doesn't give her a head start on the next challenge. It doesn't give her immunity to skip the next challenge. It doesn't do anything. It's just a pin for her to wear, which is kind of a slap in the face given that she did such amazing work. And then we go on to the casting off moment, and Gordon was eliminated. And I really did not like that. Why? Why? Now, mind you, Gordon was in the losing team for the couch. So I think that also played against him. But so was Dipti. I don't know. For me, I think it should have been Dipti that should have gone home, because at the end of the first challenge, she did not produce a garment, at least not a wearable, practical one. And I think that should have been the basis, because over here, the unfinished couch did not win. And mind you, it was probably a much more creative design, because not only did they have a sunset, I think they even added some stars to the side of the couch. Like, it was supposed to be a wow moment. And yes, I guess it wasn't very well executed, but it was unfinished, just like the other vest. And I don't know. I think they're not being fair when it comes to judging. And I'll be here judging them, judging the knitters. So for the next episode, we have 80s fashion and dog fashion. And I don't know what it's going to come down to. I did see a picture of a little dog and what they're going to be making them wear. So we'll see if they're going to be terrorizing these poor doggos, or if we're going to get a good laugh with this 80 fashions take. And I don't know, if you want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe. And y'all, we're just here for the game. We are just here to have fun. But because I'm not covering the drama, I'm really trying to get to see these episodes without any bias. I really want to give you my thoughts and my recap without being influenced. But I do think that it's important that you know that this show is being sketchy. And if you want to support the knitters, go directly to their pages through their social media. And like I said, I'm going to try to find them. At least on Instagram. I do know Gordon has a YouTube channel. I'm going to tag him. Go check them out if you're interested. If not, cool. Let's just sit here and get, some popcorn, and we can talk Game of Wool and their competition. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for stopping by and just listen to me rant about this competition show. Thank you for being here. And remember, let's just have fun and leave a comment down below to see if you are watching Game of Wool and who are you rooting for. I have personally found it very hard to just go for one specific contestant because I find all of them to be really good creative designers, and I don't know, I like all of them. But I guess the more we get to know them, the more we get to see from them, I guess we'll start forming teams, which I think it'll be cool. But let's keep it respectful. Let's keep it fun. We are here to crochet and knit and play with yarn, and just laugh a little, have fun. So thank you so much for being here. Bye.